Yes. Yes, let me go to our. So anyway, so you are able to see, right?
Yes, sir.
So last week, we have started this design, okay, of the bolted thing. So two types we have said, bearing and slip resistant, okay. So I have shown you the how in how many ways a bolt can fail, okay, like shearing, then the shearing of bolt shank, then bearing can happen, then the plate may tear out, the tension failure of the plate, block shear. So like that, there are several modes of failures are there. So already I showed you, there are nice videos are there also in YouTube. Okay, so you can visualize these failures itself. Okay, so finally, we have said, what is the design criteria also, like, how to calculate the shear strength, how to calculate, you see, the bearing strength, and then how to calculate, the tension capacity and all other details itself. So, how many number of bolts and others also we have seen. So basically this is the shear strength, okay, how to calculate per, the shear plane or whatever in the bolts. So now, and I think in the tutorials, okay, so you would have, I think, the last Friday, I think TS would have explained you, or you would have solved some problems, how to calculate these numbers itself. Now, one thing I forgot also, maybe, why this root 3 comes, has anybody idea? See, like this root 3. Yeah. So why this root 3 comes whenever shear is there, say. So this root 3 business comes into pictures. Why this root 3 comes? Can anybody tell us? Because you would have studied in mechanics of materials.
Sir, FUB is the axial stress. So maybe to convert it into tau xy, we divide by root 3.
So how that root 3 comes, what you have studied theories of failure, right, in your mechanics of materials,
Yes, sir.
so which it is based on which theory of failure? Rankins theory you studied, right?
I don't know like
tell me, what is the theory?
Sir, I don't know like that.
No, theories of failure you have studied, right? What are the theories of failure? Several theories are there. Rankins theory, brittle material, what theory we use, what do you mean by failure? You would have studied, von Mises. Have you heard this word? Von Mises, the stress. You followed this von Mises stress, or von Mises theory of failure, we say, which is a very, very, the famous theory. So we have like a brittle material. We also have ductile material. Okay. So if you just, I will just show you. See, like for example, we have a brittle theories of failures are there. Say. So they depend on brittle material, then ductile. Now steel is, a ductile material. So for ductile materials, what theory we use? We use this von Mises. Okay. So this is a theory of failure we use. So you already studied stress, right, in your mechanics of material. What is stress? Stress is basically in 3 dimensions. So what is stress?
Stress is a matrix.
Tensor basically. Okay, so 3 by 3, all of you would have studied sigma 1 1, sigma 1 2, sigma 1 3, and it is a symmetric kind of a thing you have. Okay, so now right, the invariants. Have you heard about invariants of a stress tensor?
Yes, sir.
That is to calculate principal stresses you would have done, no? I1, I2, I3, you remember, right? I2 is, the determinant of is a 2 by 2, several 2 by 2 matrices. I3 is anyway determinant of this matrix, and I1 is anyway, sum of these three itself, okay? So the von Mises failure criteria, so it is related to this I2, or it is not directly related to this one, deviatoric part actually, okay? So deviatoric part of the stress tensor. This also, have you heard this word, deviatoric?
Yes, sir, but it is not taught in that mechanics of material course. This was something extra.
Okay, so deviatoric, you see, whenever you have a stress tensor, so you can partition them into isotropic and deviatoric part. Okay, so this we do like a separate kind of thing. Isotropic is like a diagonal matrix, P0, 0, 0, P0. It is like a, it is something like, for pressure kind of a thing. Everywhere you have this normal stresses, and this one will be, minus P sigma 1 2 sigma 1 3, then sigma 2 2 minus P. So like that, you get this matrix. Okay. So this we call as a Dweck-Torek part. And if you compute the second invariant, say, okay, that is the second invariant of this one, we have, you see, so that it gives you, that J2, and then you take this one. So it turns out to be, something like sigma 1 1 minus sigma 2 2 square, plus sigma 2 2, say, minus sigma 3 3 whole square, plus, sigma 3 3 minus sigma 1 1 whole square, plus 6 times. Okay. So we have the shear stresses also, 1 2 square, plus 2 3 square, plus 3 1 square, like that. You see, we have this big the expression for the von Mises criteria and all other details. Okay. So now based on this criteria, say, so von Mises theory of failure, it says, your sigma v, it is, root of 3 times J2 kind of a thing, and this is our expression, okay, for sigma v for 3-dimensional stress tensor. And you have a square root also. Okay. So because this is related to square root, and of course you have some divided by 2 also will be there. You can calculate J2 and you can try to do this one. Okay. So this is our von Mises theory of failure. So now when it is a pure shear, say, okay, no, sorry, when it is a pure shear kind of a thing, so what happens is, all other stresses will be, 0. Okay. So all other stresses will be 0 except, sigma 1 2, say. If you take only this expression, all others will be 0 0 0 0 kind of a thing for pure shear. So automatically this 6 2 comes. So 2 3s are 6, you followed it. So this turns out to be square root, say, so 6 sigma 1 2 square. If you take only one shear, say, so this 3 comes, and finally, say, your sigma 1 2, say, it becomes this sigma v by root 3 actually. Okay. So this root 3 business comes from, you see, the von Mises the theory. Okay. So this you have to understand. So it says that the magnitude of shear stress, say, okay, generally the magnitude of shear stress, we also write like this. In pure shear, so whenever you are having a pure shear, say, that is only one component, that is sigma 1 2, okay, or you can take sigma 1 3 or sigma 2 3 also, you will get same root 3 business only. Okay, is root 3 times lower, we say, lower than this yield stress in tension. Okay, so this is how we calculate. So if I know the tensile strength, I will do a Coupon test and I will calculate my stress strain curve in tension and find out the ultimate load or whatever. So if you want to find out for shear, say, it is simply this is divided by root 3. Okay, so this root 3 business, you should know, you followed it, at least that it comes from von Mises theory. Okay. So fine, this is a very important thing. Okay, because this root 3, whenever there is a shear, say, this root 3.
Sir,
So sometimes, tell me.
Sir, which code do we have this gamma MB?
Is IS 800 only.
Okay.
You can see IS 800 only, gamma MB is there. Okay, so we have that I showed you right long back in my previous slides. These are the yield factors for the safety and others that you have, right. If you want, I can show you. Let me try. If you go to 800. So you are able to see, right, the code.
Yes, sir.
So if you see that table is there, no? Section 3. See this table also I showed you. So limit state design, you go, so section 5. So these are the gamma F actual, okay, for the loads we have. Then we have another table will be there. So these are the, you can see here. Okay. So this table is visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what is here? Gamma MB is there, no, bolts bearing types. Gamma MB is how much for shop fabrication?
1.5.
1.25. So gamma MB, gamma MF means Bolt's friction type. You can see, right? So this is already given in the table 5 in the partial safety factors. So whatever we are doing, everything comes from code only. Okay. So
Okay,
gamma MB, you know, right? 1.25. So you can, everything is given in the code. No need to see anything itself. Okay. So this, please remember. So this root 3, if somebody asks you, say, why this root 3 comes in shear, say, that means, you know, one Mises theory and then ductile, this one. So this, if you should be able to remember, I forgot to tell in the last class. Okay. So this is our expressions, and we have the 3 reduction factors also. One for, you know, then the joint is very, very long, say. What do you mean by long joint? Nah, the definition also, there is a clear. So if the length of the joints exceeds 15 times diameter. So this is a, you know, the notation that we call as a long joint, and then the strength also reduces. So this also we told you, like you see, automatically, you know, this happens, and these joints will be taking more this one, whereas this will be there. So load will not be uniform kind of a thing. See, I'm showing you one typical test they did. So there are some, you see, 9 bolts are there. Okay, so some type of a, you know, lab joint or whatever this connection is there. So now when they measured this is an experimental result, shear stresses, you can see the shear stresses in bolt 1 and then in bolt 9, say, they are very, very high. But whereas the shear stresses, you know, other things, you see, you will see these type of you know, a pattern like this. So this pi will be subjected to very little this one. And when you see the failure, say, so you can see these end bolts actual, basically, you know, they will be the, you know, the first to fail. But whereas if you see the middle bolts, you know, they are all fine. So the assumption in our code is, you know, the load is equally carried by all the bolts, but that doesn't happen when the joint is, you know, very, very long joint. Okay. So this is why we have to reduce the reduction factor. So then grip length also I told you. So if grip length is more, means bending stresses also will come. So then obviously you see the reduction will has to happen. Then for the packing plates also, I told you, when you want to join 2 plates of different thicknesses, because you want to put a joints, you have to add some extra packing plates. So obviously the strength, you know, the reduces. So this also 3 things. Okay. Then bearing also I told you. So bearing anyway is a projected area. So d times d itself we take, and then we calculate all these numbers itself. Okay. So this, I think last week I have already told you, and I think in the tutorial, you know, you would have solved those problems itself. So now we will see this tension capacity also. So now this is very, very important when you are having hangers and other hanger connections, you know. So these type of things, the tension will be there. The full bolt will be under tension. So here also the formula, you know, it has been borrowed from you see the Euro code itself. So 2 formulas is our IS code gives. So all these details are in IS 800. Okay, no need to worry. So if you see IS 800, so where is tension? All these connections, they are in section 10. Okay, so you click this section 10 chapter. So all the details are there, expressions, whatever notation I'm using, so everything has been taken from this itself. So you can see beta, ANB, ASB, all are clearly defined. Bearing capacity also. Then, you know, the tension capacity, say. So this is, you see, the formula, you know, given in the code itself. So same thing I have copied there also. Gamma MB, gamma M naught, so everything is available in the code. Okay. So now this is a tension capacity given in our you know, the IS code actual. Okay, so 0.9 times FUB, this is ultimate this one. This is, I think, the, you know, the net you know, the tensile area of the bolt. Then of course these are the partial safety factors for bolt, you know, that shop fabrication I showed you, right, 1.25 or whatever this one. So this also we have gamma M naught. It is also given in that table which I showed you, the partial safety factors. Okay. So FYB is the yield strength of the material, and this is our shank area of the bolt. So you have to verify these two, and obviously the second one will be higher than this itself. So this gives you the the tension capacity of the bolt itself. So the same thing, this is the same thing I'm just showing you, whatever is given in the code itself. So this you followed it, this one you have to calculate, and then you know, sometimes what code they do is, you know, this gamma M naught, say. Okay, so if it is gamma MB, so this will be pushed, you followed it this side also. Sometimes they write, you know, this fashion or that fashion. You follow whatever code has given. Okay, so ultimate tensile stress, yield stress of the bolt, net tensile area, shank area. So some textbooks they write like this. Okay, some textbooks, you know, they push this that side, but which is correct, both are fine only, but you know, you follow as the IS code itself. Okay, so now finally, you know, so you get all these you know, the numbers itself. So now here, whenever you are having this tensile, this capacity, say, so we have some additional problems, which comes into picture, these type of hanger connections. That's what we call as, the prying, the forces. So this word you have seen, the pry bar we use in, sometimes in mechanical things, we use a pry bar or crowbar we use, you remember, to remove the bolts or nails from a, a wood or something. So we use what we call as a crowbar. Crowbar, you remember, right? All of you would have seen also the crowbar, a lever or something, you see. We use it to remove the nails in the wood itself. So now this word, this crowbar is also known as a pry bar itself. So this word comes from, that itself. So this is a bolt connection. Okay, so this is one bolt here, two bolts are there, and this is the main plate is there, and we have this another plate is there. So you can see. So now the load is applied, you see, like this actually. 2 times, the tensile load or whatever is applied here. So now here, the what happens is basically, so this bolts, say, they behave like a crowbar kind of a thing actually. So now when this bolt is under tension, say, so these edges will be there. So that is this edge of the plates, say. So this portion, what happens is, because, when the plates are under friction, it will be fine, but slowly when the load keeps on increasing, say, so this flange, whatever you are seeing, this plate, it basically, it's bends, it is something like this actually. Okay, so what happens is, due to this bending, say, so you will be having the tension will be there, plus additional you will be having this Q, that is what we call as, you see, the prying forces, which comes from, this plate actually. Okay, so there's this QU, say, with this we call this as, the prying forces. So generally when you're designing the bolt, say, so the load in the bolts, now the load is 2 times T, and then 2 bolts are there, say. So our assumption is bolts are, the load is distributed equally. So this bolt it is TU, this bolt it is TU. But apart from TU, you also have to increase slightly your load, where you have to add this QU to account for this, the prying forces. You followed. So this is the like a extra thing which you have to do, when you are doing this calculation. I will just show you. So like for example, say this is my plate. Okay, to explain what is prying force. So this is my plate. I have joined this at this bolt. Okay, now when I am applying the load like this, say, now what happens when I pull this plate here? So what happens is, so here, so this comes out. So when I'm in tension, so this automatically comes out. So what happens is, this wherever the bolt is there, so this acts as basically a lever actually. It is like a crowbar kind of a thing, you would have seen here. So this acts, so this portion of this one, so this will give you, the additional, the force which comes due to this, the action, so which comes on this bolt itself. So that becomes, so if this is the load is F, say, and because you are having this edge also, so what happens is, because of this, lever arm, this bolt is acting as a lever basically. So this turns out, and this also will give you some additional, some small amount of force on this bolt itself. So on this bolt, say, so the load will be, you followed, right, F plus Q, where F is the load which is coming from this one, that is from the tensile thing, but Q is, your prying force. So this is, the reason why you have to add some slightly some, the extra, the load. So this we call as, this is the prying force. So this is a very, very important, not only in civil engineering or this one, but, mechanical system structures, say, whenever they have a pipe or you followed, right? So many things will be there, mechanical, even air, this aeroplanes or whatever, aerospace and others. So this is very important. So if you see this type of connection also, say, okay. So here the bolt is here, you followed. So that this problem comes when the load axis, say, is slightly, offset actually from this bolt axis. See, the bolts are, here. So here also, this is my bolt axis basically. Okay, so the load is not acting exactly at the bolt axis, slightly you followed, right, at a distance from this axis. So because of this, you will have to, so this bolt, say, you have to design for LX. Plus you also have to add some, the prying forces also have to be added up. Okay, so like you can see clearly, this figure. So when there is, these two are in tension, say, and you are trying to connect through a bolt basically. So this will have LX also will be there. Because of these two edges, say, you will have some additional force which comes on this, the bolts itself. So the design force will be, see, LX plus Q. So this Q is what we call as, the prying forces. So these prying forces are very important, essential anyway in our steel structures also. Not sorry, in our civil also, even in mechanical, aerospace also. You can see here also. So I have a bolt here. Okay, so now the pressure is you see applied like this. So pressure anyway is also like a tension kind of a thing. So now what happens at this edge, you will see these type of you see the prying the forces Q. So it has to be increased for this slightly to account for this Q value also. So so generally this is a very complicated thing also, how to model this prying and so many things. But our so these so generally what they do is to decrease this prying forces. There are some like tricks are there, like by increasing this A, that is this edge of the things from the bolt, increasing A, or thickness of the plates basically if they increase or by decreasing this B, that is a distance from the bolt axis to the load axis actually. Okay, so then prying can be decreased, but some cases it may not be possible to do this one. So if it's not possible, say we have to add that extra Q also into the calculations. And when there are several bolts are there, say like the first row, this bolt will be subjected to more you follow that all of them will be having, but this will carry more this prying force itself. So this is a very important thing when you are designing these type of tension connections, and when the load axis and these two say they are far away from they are slightly far away, they don't coincide and far away from each other. So this is a formula given in our IS code. Okay, so this is nothing but your QU, that is a prying force. So IS code gives this formula. Okay, so this figure also I have taken from IS 800 only. This figure is there in the code book. Okay, you can see also. So this is a little bit complicated, so these bolts say whenever you are having hanger connections, so the design capacity or whatever, if you want to find out the load, so your load is 2 times TE say. So each bolt will carry TE. Okay, plus you have to increase this load by Q, which we call as the prying force, or this crowbar, the kind of a thing. And this is the equation you see provided in our IS code. It is slightly complex, and it has come from experiments and you followed, right? So this is a very the complex kind of a thing. And another thing also, what people say whenever you are having this prying say, okay, so because bending movement also will be there, because this plate starts trying to bend. So the bending moment diagram also, if you try to plot, it looks like this. You would have done in our structure analysis also. So you can see, so this is the bending moment. So this is where the bolts are located here. Okay, due to this the prying force. So QU into LE you followed, right? So these are the bending moments basically. And how this hanger connection breaks is, so basically plastic hinge gets formed here, then here, then here, and then you see here also. So these are very the complex the phenomenon. This is a prying basically how it is going to fail. Okay, so here so this so it may fail basically you see by the plate may fail, or this the entire thing may fail, or the bolts may even come up. So this is one extra thing which you have to do when you have to do this the hanger connection or something like that. Now as far as this course is concerned, say you will learn this in great detail in the your other courses, but right now as far as this course is concerned, basic course, so at least you should be able to know that, at least you should be able to define what is a prying force, what is this thing, that if you know, that is more or less sufficient. Now in design calculations, generally our practicing engineers, when you are designing these type of connections, what they do is they don't calculate as per this prying force. Okay, what they do is they calculate whatever load which is coming on the bolts there. And generally it has been found out, if we can calculate this prying force also, it is something around is 10 to 30% actual of the total load. So this is just a thumb rule actual. Okay, so 10 to 30% it is prying the load. Okay, so what they do is, suppose if the design load is 100 or something, say you add some extra like 30%, so that is something like 30. So you take the design load as 130 and then you design the bolts actual. So this is a thumb rule people use, 10 to some 30%. So if you want you can calculate also, but it is very difficult in the design, because we don't know the thickness of the plate, and before you see something, or it is a little bit tricky. So this also we use like a thumb rule. So 30% you increase, say you can account for this prying force also. But if you want to do in detail, you have a formula, we have a lot of theory itself. But this prying is a very important in essential in mechanical people, as well as this aerospace pressure. When you are designing a missile, say, okay, so missile also you followed it, lot of pressure will be there, then the bolts have to be designed, then there's a prying and other things comes into picture. Okay, this you should know. So now anyway, so now let us see how to design this HSFG board, that is high strength and the friction grip bolts itself. Okay, so here there are the design. Two types of designs are there. One is a parallel shank bolt. We say there is nothing like these are not two different bolts, and wasted shank also. That is essentially regarding the design philosophy. We design into two types. Okay, so there is it is not like two different bolt. It is same HSFG bolt, and you can design as a parallel shank or wasted shank. So they use this type of the wordings, okay, in the code books itself. So now so this parallel shank bolt is essentially like this. We already shown you this one. This is the load versus or force versus displacement for HSFG bolt, say. So it is like this. Okay, so this is a connection or something. So when it is a parallel shank bolt, say, so what we do is so parallel shank bolt means so what the design philosophy is you followed. So we say that the bolt will not slip, no slip. Okay, so this is a no slip, but not to slip. Okay, so not to slip at serviceability load. No, not to slip at serviceability load, and but slips into bearing at ultimate load. So this we call as the parallel shank. So it is designed like this. Under serviceability, entire thing will be resisted by friction. Okay, so at serviceability load, say, so everything friction capacity will be there. But once ultimate this one, say, it will be resisted by this bearing kind of a thing. Now if it is a wasted shank, say, this is much more this one. So this is not to the slip. This is not allowed to slip at both service and ultimate loads. Okay, so two type of things we do the design. It is not one bolt only, but we do wasted shank or parallel shank. So parallel shank you followed, right? So what the design is basically so this happens the slip actual. So this should be there up to the serviceability load, but this bearing will be there at ultimate load. So, but if it is a wasted shank, say, the design is much more conservative kind of a thing. Even at ultimate load also, so your bolt should not slip. So everything is resisted by friction itself. Okay, so if you want to design these type of bolts, say the parallel this type of a thing, you have to calculate the frictional capacity, you have to calculate bearing capacity, you have to calculate shear capacity, all those things you have to do. Suppose if it is a wasted shank, say, because the design itself is such that we are not allowing the the bolt to slip at even service as well as ultimate load, say the frictional capacity itself is the sufficient. But because the maybe more number of bolts are maybe required, you followed, right? So this may be more conservative or more uneconomical kind of a thing, so which happens in practice. Okay, so two things you have to do, parallel shank and this one. So this is expression you see for HSFG bolts if you want to do the frictional capacity. So this is the expression given in the code. This also is available in the IS 800. So this is the one. So this mu is the coefficient of friction, whereas this indicates the number of how many frictional interfaces are there. Suppose if it is so like you see, if I'm having a lap joint, so how many frictional faces will be there now? So this is my lap joint. Okay. So now you see how many frictional contacts are there per lap? Three. So how many the contacts are there? Friction, where friction will get developed? See, this is a bolt you followed, right? Where friction gets developed in the lap joint. See, this is one plate. Okay, and this is another plate. How many frictional? What is the contact surface between these two? How many contact surfaces are there between the two plates?
Two contacts.
Two.
Top and one each. One or each.
One or two?
Sir, one on each plate.
No, one only. This is a contact plane, right? That's all. This is only one frictional plane only is there. You remember? Suppose if it is a butt joint, see, suppose I have a connection like this. One plate is here. Okay. I have another plate like this. I have a plate like this also. Then I have another plate also, which is I have designed somewhere like this. You followed. So I have a bolt here. This is a high strength, the friction grip bolts. So now my load is like this. So P here also some P by 2 or whatever you see. So this also is there. Now how many frictions are there? 3 plates are there now.
Two plates.
Two. What are those two? First plate and second plate one. Okay. So this is one frictional surface. Then I have another frictional surface also. You followed. So two are there actually. So now so for a butt joint, which you have already double cover butt joint. This is one plate. This is another plate. Okay. You have joined by a cover plate above and cover plate below. Okay. So now we have one bolt here, another bolt here. This is one bolt and this is one bolt. Now tell me how many frictional contacts are there here for a bolt? For one bolt, if you take, so how many friction is there?
4.
No, for one bolt. So for this bolt, you have one friction.
2.
2. So for each bolt you followed it, 2 frictional surfaces are there. So if it is a lap joint, say there is only one frictional surface. If it is you can usually visualize, you followed, right? How many frictional surfaces are there. So double cover butt joint you followed, right? Suppose if it is single cover butt joint, so then we already did, right? Single cover, say there is only one cover plate only he has provided. And then here one bolt is there and one bolt is here also. Now how many are there? If it is not single cover,
One each.
One each actually. Okay, so like this you have. So this you have to visualize. So N is nothing but the number of the frictional surfaces. Okay, so double cover butt joint 2, lap joint 1, single cover butt. So you can easily visualize. Okay, no need to memory or anything like that. And now we have the friction also. That is a slip factor they say, or friction factor also they say. So it is given. There is one table gives in the code actually. So this is our. It is also available in IS 800. So how the surfaces are nicely. So if the surfaces are perfect, say, loose, rust removed, no pitting, nothing is there. You have done a nice sandblast or some technique. You have cleaned the surfaces very, very nicely. Set before you are making a joint, you can take it as 0.5. Suppose if it is a spray metallized, this alkali zinc silicate pit, there are already. Why do we do this zinc coating? So why do we coat this steel? You remember? So we have this coating on the steel. Why do we do coating? I told you in the first thing itself. So steel bars, whenever they come, say steel plates or something, they do coating basically. Why do they do coating?
To avoid corrosion.
To avoid corrosion. So, but the problem is if there is a coating, say, and then you are trying to join these coated plates, say, what happens? The friction, it will be different actual. Okay, that's why then the friction thing should have to reduce 0.4. Now this one is no coating, nothing actually. They are like perfect. You followed it like this. Then 0.5 coated means 0.4. Then they have like you see wire brushed. How you have removed the loose, right, tight mill scale or something 0.3. Suppose if it is untreated, say like in practice, we don't do like you see if you go to the field, they don't do this one. They simply join the bolts, say. So the friction thing will get reduced to 0.2. So if it is very excellent, say. So 0.5, 0.4. So you have to go to the site looking at the thing. You have to take a decision actual. Okay. So this is our μF. Then we have KH actual. So this is also some factor they use. So one for fasteners in normal clearance holes, 0.85 in oversized holes you followed, and then short slotted holes. It depends on the hole diameter also, because if large slotted or something, say, then obviously you would have lost so much of material because the hole size is more. So KH and accounts for this one, and FPC, say. So this is where the the preloading force they say, and this is calculated. The code gives the net area at the threads multiplied by proof stress, and this is our value. So 0.7 times FUB, the ultimate this one, and this is nothing but the net area at the threads. So all these formulas are given in the code. So substitute, you will get the design, the slip strength of this HSFG board. That is a frictional, the capacity. Okay, so now if you see, like this is a typical example I'm showing you. So we have two tension plates, 16 mm and 18 mm thickness. Okay, Fe410. So these are connected in a lap joint by a 20 mm diameter HSFG bolts of grade 10.9. Okay, So in clearance holes arranged in you see 3 rows of 2 bolts. So this is the details here is given. So the contact surfaces are prepared by sandblasting and removing the loose rust. So if the contact surfaces are sandblasting, removing the loose rust, say what is the frictional value? No.
0.5.
No, so that is, you can see this table, loose rust removed, no pitting, say you can take 0.5, but if you want to be conservative, you can reduce, it's up to you. Okay, so now determine the strength and efficiency of the joint and other things you followed, right? They have asked, but anyway, we will not go into all the details. I will just show you how to calculate. So these are 2 tension plates. So one is 16 mm, other one is 18 mm. Okay, so this is 18 mm plate and this is a 16 mm plate. So they are joined by, you see, this type of the bolts. So now 2 bolts, they have used 3 rows and 2 bolts you followed, right? They have given also, I think 1 bolt here, another bolt here. Okay, so these are the friction capacity HSFG bolts. And if you see in plans, the thing is like this. So this is my bolted connection. So this is where the plates are there. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this is my lap joint. So this is the load you followed, right? That is how it is going. So this is one plate and this is another plate actually. So now this is what you followed, right? They have given to you. So now you have to calculate, the friction capacity of this bolts itself. So now how many bolts are there total? 3 rows of 2 bolts. So 3 rows of 2 bolts means 3 twos are 6. So that is how they have been arranged actually. Okay. So 2 columns, 3 rows are there. Okay. That is the meaning of this sentence. So each row consists of 2 bolts. So if this is in from the top view, this if you see in the side view. Okay. So total 6 bolts are there. Now we have to calculate the frictional capacity. So it's straightforward. You followed it. So we have to calculate Fp comma C. So this is a 0.7 times FUB and then you see NB, that is a net tensile area. So now this is a 0.7 and what is FUB? For the bolt, what is the FUB value, ultimate strength of the bolt? How do you calculate ultimate strength of the bolt? Ultimate tensile strength of the bolt.
Sir, 10.9.
10.9 is a great. Tell me what's the value? How do you calculate? This will should tell you. What is the value?
Sir, 1000.
10,000. Excellent. And what's the yield strength?
900.
900. So be careful. Okay. So no need to specify. Generally for this 10.9, say you can take it as 1000 if not specified. But if you see the code gives the exact value is 1040. If you do 1000 also, it is perfectly fine. Okay, 1040 is the one exact value, for this 10.9 bolts. And now how do you calculate A and B? So this also, I think you would have calculated net tensile area for a bolt. How do you calculate? So bolt's diameter is 20 mm. 20 mm is the diameter of the bolt. So now what is the shank area?
0.78 into area of the
shank area. Excellent. So 0.78 into pi by 4, 20 square. So you all of you know how to calculate. So I will not go. So 245 into 10 to the power of -3 if you probably to units. So this turns out to be 178.36 actually. Oh, sorry. Okay, so this turns out to be, you see, 178.36, some I think kilonewton kind of a thing. So now once it is there, so now we have to calculate the design, the strength design. So VDS comma ISF. So now here the friction we are taking it as, I think I will write properly. So this is 0.5 is my friction because from the table I am getting friction. Then I have to calculate, you see, all these numbers. KH. Suppose if I assume, so KH depends on what type of hole you are using. Let us say we have done in a standard hole. So for standard hole, what is the size? What is the value of KH?
1.
If oversize means 0.85. So this also, let us say I have this also, I know 1. Then one more is there, right? What is this? One more. How many number of friction surfaces are there? Tell me how many number of friction is there here for this one?
1 surface.
one only. So for the bolt also it is only one surface only is there. So this also turns out to be 1 multiplied by what else is there? FPC. FPC we have already calculated, that is 178.36. Okay, divided by, I think, what is the other one? Some gamma MF. So this you have to look into which table, that limit state of serviceability I showed you, right? Gamma MF or something. So you will let us see the table also. Okay. So now if you go to our IS 800, say, where is that limit state design? So in the limit state design, there is a table is there. So limit state, partial, the safety factors here. So what is gamma MF? Now tell me what is the value you will take?
1.25.
Which one you have to take? Bolt's friction type, that is gamma MF. Okay, so whether it is a shop or a field, say the value is 1.25. Just to pick up from this graph. That is 1.25. So this turns out to be 71.34, sorry, kilonewtons actually. So this is the design capacity, the friction, okay, for this the HSFG bolt itself. Now how many bolts are there? Now total how many bolts are there?
6.
6. So this is for one bolt. So total capacity will be 6 into 71.34. So this turns out to be some 428, some 0.4 kilonewtons actually. Okay, so this is how we can calculate. You follow, right, the capacity of the bolts itself. Now here there are, of course, you can you follow, right? So now when slip is permitted, when slip is not permitted, what do you do when slip is not permitted? Means what is the value? When slip is not permitted, what is the meaning of this one? Now, what's the meaning of slip is not permitted, say? So the whole load, so as already I told you, two types of things are there. One is serviceability. I showed you, right, this one, parallel shank, wasted shank actually. So what is that? If you are allowing slip means, what is that you are assuming here? When you are doing the slip is allowed, say, what happens? Say? There will be no friction, then the whole weight will be, how the bolts are going to transfer. See, once it has slipped, now what happens? Once these surfaces have slipped actually. So now what happens? This HSFG bolt becomes a what type of a bolt?
Normal bearing bolt.
Normal bearing bolt. So what you have to do? So slip is permitted. Okay. So when they say slip is permitted, so what you have to do? You have to calculate the bearing capacity, shear capacity. That is all straightforward. Last tutorial you people would have done. So those expressions have to be used and you have to do. So slip is permitted means there is nothing. It is just ordinary, you follow, right, the bolt itself. So all the design will be same, but only in those formulas, please remember there will be yield strength, there will be FUB. That there you have to use 10.9. Okay, not 4.6. Ordinary bolt means 4.6. This is 10.9. So this you have to calculate. Okay, it's a straightforward kind of a thing. So anyway, so this is how you can calculate, and we will do in our tutorial also, this this end. So you have to calculate the capacity of this HSFG bolt. And now another most important thing in our bolted connections, that is this block shear. Okay, I already showed you the videos also, you followed, right, in the last class itself. So this also happens, because of this connection. So here, whenever you are having a connection, say, so this, see, like this is my connection. The whole connection itself, it comes out of the, the plate itself. So this is what we call as, the block shear. So now in the block shear, say, why this block shear happens is whenever there is a connection, say, okay, so you will be having, two planes. One is, this one will be shear plane basically, and this will be, you see, tensile tension plane. You can easily identify by looking at the thing itself. Now suppose if the failure is like this, say, so this is a tension plane, this is my shear plane. So two planes will be there. So now a tension plane, another one will be a shear plane kind of a thing. Now among these two, one will be a weaker, okay, another one will be, you see, the stronger plane. So weaker plane can be tension or shear, or stronger can be either ways also. It can be shear may be stronger, or tension may be weaker, or this plane or that plane. So now when you keep on applying the loads here, what happens is among these two planes, among the tension and among the shear, whichever is weaker, okay. So the first what happens is it tries to break, and then it reaches its yield strength actually. Now once this plane loses, you followed it, the strength, then the stronger plane comes into picture. The stronger plane will carry the load itself. So when the load, when you keep on increasing the loads, what happens is that the plate will fail by the stronger plane. You see, it just you followed it, it ruptures actually. So when the stronger plane is rupturing, say the weaker plane is already in the yielding, you followed it, the stage itself. So now, so you have to do, so this block shear is basically, it is basically a combination of tension as well as shear, or the weaker plane as well as, you see, the stronger plane itself. So there are two failure modes we see. So one is, the rupture occurs along the tension plane, full yield develops along the gross shear, or rupture across net shear and the gross tension. So now in the first case, which is weaker, which is stronger plane? Now, which plane is weak, which plane is strong? Tension is weak or tension is strong?
Tension is weak.
No, be careful. Rupture is occurring. You followed it. Rupture. Now, what I want, initial stage, what happens? The weaker plane, it takes a load, it starts yielding. Once it has gone into yield, this one say, then the load is taken by the stronger plane basically. So stronger plane unit keeps on taking the load, and finally, the rupture happens on the stronger plane. But weaker plane, you followed it, it will be in the yielding stage only. So now you tell me which is strong here.
Tension is strong.
Tension is strong, shear is weak actually. Now in the second case,
shear is strong.
Rupture means strong. Rupture is related to strong plane. Okay, so this is strong, whereas this is a weaker plane kind of a thing. So how the the things fail is a very complicated. You can have so this is a joint, say it can fail like this. This is one path. Then it can fail like this also, then it can fail like this also. So whenever you have a connection, say you may have to do all these mode shapes, like the plate coming like this, or plate coming like this, or plate coming like this, and then you have to identify the block shear failure itself. But the only thing is, so what is happening, so only thing here, the block shear is very easy, but only thing is you should be able to calculate the areas of the weaker plane and the stronger plane. So here, how many shear planes are there if it is for this type of bath failure? Now, how many shear planes are there here for the block shear path 1?
2 shear planes.
2 shear and tension?
1 tension.
1 tension. But here?
1 each.
1 each. Here also 1 each. So you may have to calculate all these things. So our code gives like this actually. 2 formulas it gives for shear yielding, tension tearing, or fracture. That means one is weak, other one is strong. Now other one also for shear, fracture, tension yielding, say. So the code gives you followed, right, 2 types of thing, and it is very easy. What is root 3? Whenever you see root 3, what should come in your mind?
Shear.
Shear.
Automatically root 3 means a shear only. You followed it. Shear yielding here, and tension, say tension is anyway you followed it. Fu you followed it. We use this expression. So these 2 expressions you have to use and then calculate the block shear. So whichever is the lowest one, so that is the block shearing strength of the connection actual. So these 2 formulas is in the code gives. The only thing is here you have to calculate the areas actual. Net tensile area, the gross shear area, or ATG, then AVN actual. So this is net tensile areas. So this you have to calculate. Okay, and net gross area we say. Gross area of shear plane as well as you followed it the tension plane itself. So like you say, so this, if you want to have a tension member, somebody has given you like this, say, okay, so this is a gusset plate, and you see, so this is a connection. So here already, they have told you how this thing is going to fail actually. So they say that, so this is one angle section, 2 things. So this is my plane. So this whole thing, say, is going to come, you followed it like this, and these are the details which has been provided, and this is an angle section. Unequal angle 80 by 50 by you followed, right, 8 mm. So this is my unequal angle section, say. So now if you want to calculate the block shear, say, you should be able to calculate the areas, that's the shear as well as you followed, right, the tensile, this tension kind of a thing. So now which plane is shear, which plane is tensile among AB, AB and BC, which are the planes? First identify which is shear plane, which is tensile plane.
AB shear plane.
BC is
Tensile plane.
tension. So now two cases are there. Okay, so now you have to calculate the areas AVG. Okay, so this is the gross area basically. So that is, you know, all the dimensions are here, 100, 50, everything is there. So 100. Okay, so you know, plus you see 50 multiplied by 8. So this is a gross area you followed, right? The shear plane we are calculating. So 1200 you know, mm square. Okay, then we have to calculate AV and the net tensile, you see the area. So now this area also we have to calculate actually. So now this is little bit you followed, right? A tricky kind of a thing. You can see 100 plus 50. So this is the original one. And now you have to subtract this bolts you followed at this size actually. The tensile, and here it is only half actually. Okay, so this we also you followed it. We also write this as you know. So you followed, right? 1.5 multiplied by bolt diameter is 18 mm diameter. So 18 mm is the diameter of the bolts. Okay, I think 18 mm diameter. So this becomes, you see, 1.5 into, you know, the 18 multiplied by 8. 8 is the thickness of the plate. So this turns out to be, you see, 984 mm square. Now have you under what 1.5 how it comes? So this is one. Okay, one full, the 18 mm has come, but at this side say only half you followed it. The mode shape is like this. So here this is how, you know, it has broken. You followed, and it goes you know, like this, like this. So this you followed it. This is how you see it has broken actually. So because you followed it, this is a half only. So 18 you know, by 2 is 9. So that is as good as 1.5 times 18 itself. So this is how we calculate. And then the TG also, if you want to calculate, that is a tension, this one. So this becomes is 35 into 8. So this is 35. Okay, these dimensions are here BC. So this is for plane BC. This for plane for AB. 35 into 8. And then the tensile area, say you followed a TN. So this becomes a 35 minus how much you have to subtract for BC. BC, how much you have to subtract?
0.5 into 18.
0.5 half times 18. So that becomes, you know, half into 18 multiplied by the thickness of the plate. So this turns out to be, say, 208 you know, the mm square. So these are the areas. So once you know the areas, other things are all straightforward. Just substitute in this formula, gamma m, everything is given. You will be able to calculate the block shear strength also. Okay. So I think time is up. So I will stop here. We will continue in my next class. So if you have any questions, you can ask me. Stop recording.